on blast.
And we are live. This is the Wrap It Up on Blast Raps postgame. My name is Sheldon Alexander, and as always, this episode of Wrap It Up is brought to you by Clean Cuts Barbershop, 2013 Danforth Avenue in Toronto. Clean Cuts, the multicultural barbers that will always keep you fresh for any and all occasions. So go see Skip and the crew, and as a wise man once said, tell them that I sent you. Check them out on Instagram at Clean Cuts Toronto, or give them a call, 416-917-4833, to book your appointment now. Well, that was a great game. Toronto Raptors win in Dallas, 123-120, to at least salvage a win on this little three-game road trip. Again, my name is Sheldon Alexander. Thanks for joining me. Special shouts to the people that are on Twitter, the Twitter crew. Shout out to all you guys for joining in and always asking questions. Click on the link that you see on Twitter. You'll end up in Periscope, where you'll see a chat bar on the side of the screen. Then your questions, comments, and concerns there. We get all that there, as well as on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander, where we always take your questions there as well. Let me know what you think of this recent Raptors win. And for those of you listening to this at a later time, just know that, as always, we do the show live, and then it becomes a podcast you can find on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play by searching On Blast Podcast. You'll find this feed as well as our Blast Podcast, which is a more NBA, like general NBA talk with my guy Andrew Webster. But of course, this is Wrap It Up. And, you know, big talk here. Big talk is always on YouTube as well. Shout out to the YouTube people there in all these places. If you like what you hear, just like and subscribe, rate us, all that fun stuff. Share, tell your friends. Because, hey, we're here on a Sunday night, happy that the Raptors were able to pull out the victory. And let's be serious. This is game, 52 for the Toronto Raptors? And the countdown is on, guys. The countdown is on in terms of how many more times we get to watch Kawhi Leonard in a Raptors uniform. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this, to savor this, is because tonight you got another example of just how good Kawhi Leonard can be, right? 33 points, 10 rebounds, 9 defensive rebounds for Kawhi. But it was just when you needed those tough baskets, you needed a good basket, there was Kawhi Leonard to get it done. It's just proven time and time again, solid win by Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors. And again, an even bigger win because they improved to 37-15. And if you check out NBA box scores, then you know that the Toronto Raptors won, but the Milwaukee Bucks lost. The Bucks lost in OKC. Shouts to Rusty in OKC. Got love for that squad. But anyways, big win for the Raptors, as mentioned. And this game, from the get-go, if we decide to go through what happened in this game, I mean, first things first. We know the Mavs are an all right team, right? They're a solid team. We know all about Luka, and Luka did put on tonight. Luka put in work. The Mavs are sub 500, but the Mavs are a very good team at home, right? So I think they mentioned it during the broadcast. The Mavs have, I think, the 6th best winning percentage at home in the entire NBA. So this is a very home team, a very good challenge for the Toronto Raptors. And early on, the Raptors came out great. Nick Nurse mentioned in the pregame that with the day off, the Raptors were able to get a practice in. They watched some film. They went over some stuff. And you could tell because early the offense seemed crispy, right? There's a lot of passing, a lot of ball movement. You're getting easy shots. One guy I got to give a lot of credit to in this game is Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry had such a weird season of such extremes, right? Like the way that he started the year, he was unstoppable, right? Looked like one of the best point guards in the league. Then he kind of had that little stretch where, 4 games in a row where he just shot like terribly. Then he got hurt for about 10 games. Then he came back and it's kind of been up and down, up and down. He played 2 really good games in a row and then struggled in the last Raptor game. And everyone's kind of just waiting to see, can Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard both play well in the same game? And this was a game that you saw that. Kyle Lowry, 5 of 14 from the floor, but 5 of 10 from 3. Kyle Lowry, he started off hot from 3. I want to say he knocked down like his first 3 3-pointers in this game. And Lowry finished with 19 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds in this game, while also doing the normal Kyle Lowry things we're so used to seeing him do, right? Like a key possession late in the game where he gets matched up on Luka. And in most situations, right, if Luka gets matched up against the other team's point guard, you're worried. That's a guaranteed bucket. But not Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, stood his ground, forced Luka into taking a tough turnaround, and then Luka missed. Raps get the rebound. Luka fouls surge in frustration, and that almost led to the end of the game, right? That almost iced it for the Raptors. But again, early on, great ball movement. Very early in the game, Kawhi hitting back-to-back threes. Danny Green hit a three early. Siakam hit a three early. And you kind of got an early glimpse of what was to come in this game. And the Raptors finished 17 of 34 from three-point land. That's incredible, right? Incredible three-point shooting. But I feel like the reason for that great three-point shooting was a great ball movement. And the most important thing that I'm seeing from Kyle Lowry, and even in the last game where he didn't shoot well, and people kind of knocked me for this, but I was saying I was just happy with him taking the shots. The fact that he was missing them, hey, that's going to happen sometimes. But you need Kyle Lowry to be aggressive. You need him to be coming off those screens when he's going, as Jack likes to point out, when he's coming to his left, right? You need Kyle Lowry to be able to catch that ball in rhythm and just shoot it with confidence. And when he's doing that, that's what you need to see if you're a Toronto Raptors fan. You don't want to see him hesitating. You don't want to see him passing up shots. They need Kyle Lowry to take and make those shots, right? And you saw that with the ball movement. When him and Danny Green are shooting threes like that, it's very tough to stop the Toronto Raptors. Danny Green also had a great game, and I feel like Danny Green always has a solid game, regardless of what the numbers say. But 10 points in this game, 2 of 3 from three-point land. You could almost book Danny Green for 2 threes in every game, no? Seems like a thing. But I had this conversation earlier. It was a text conversation I had with a couple friends in a group chat. And I asked, how different would this Raptors season be if they didn't make the trade? Meaning you would have DeMar still, but the Danny Green spot would be played by OG or Norm, essentially, right? Or CJ. And now think about just the injuries that those guys have gone through. Obviously some off-the-court stuff going on with OG. But just think about the games that Danny Green and Kawhi have won for this Raptors team this season, right? It just adds such a layer of maturity and playoff toughness and experience that these guys are just able to handle any and all situations. But another solid game for Danny Green. It's just playing good defense, hitting open threes, and it became contagious. Kawhi with 3 threes, Kyle with 5, Danny Green with 2 threes, Van Fleet with 3 threes. The shooting was contagious tonight. And the thing that was interesting, and got to give Nick Nurse credit for this, he did a lot of drawing up set plays to get Kyle Lowry those open looks, right? There was a key one late in the game where I want to say the Raptors were down 4, and it was an out-of-bounds play, and they ran that set where Danny Green comes around first, and it looks like the place for him. And so you almost have the defenders cheat towards Danny Green, but really it's for Kyle Lowry, who made the inbounds pass, and he's trailing, coming all the way around to the top of the key to get the ball and knock down that 3. Again, in rhythm, going right to left, catching the ball and shooting it in rhythm. Great job by the Raptors, right? Just a great job by the Raptors in this game, save for the third quarter where, maybe it was one of those things where at halftime they were playing so well, they kind of loosened up a little, and the Mavs got off to a good run because that third quarter was just atrocious. Because if we go back to the start of this game, Raps were cooking early. 15-2 run. They were 5 for 7 from 3 early. I noticed, too, one thing that was interesting was a rotation. There's a lot of talk last game because DeLon Wright didn't play. And I always feel like in this market, and maybe it happens in other markets too, but obviously I notice it so much more because I'm so focused on the Raptors market, but I feel like bench guy minutes, like guys' minutes at the end of the bench that don't really matter, always becomes a talking point, or more of a talking point than it should be. So DeLon Wright didn't play last game, which I did find strange, but it seemed to take up like a lot of Nick Nurse's, discussions in the press conferences. And with that said, a lot of the talk online as well. People were wondering why DeLon Wright didn't play, and so it was interesting to see as he still sorts out this rotation with OG coming back, obviously, Norm being fully in, and Norm playing really well. Well, in tonight's game, OG was the first wing player off the bench. Obviously, Freddie comes in and, spells Kyle early. But here's the thing that I noticed that was really different. And here's the thing, if you've been following this podcast and you listen and you're paying attention to what we were talking about last episode, it was you got to stop playing the bench as a full unit. And what did we see tonight? The Raptors did not play the full bench unit together. They kept 2 starters on the floor at all times, and then rotated through between Norm, Fred, and OG. And then you saw DeLon get some minutes as well. But for the most part, for the majority of the bench minutes, there were 2 starters on the floor at the same time. And that was big, right? That was one of the things we've been talking about, because the bench as a full unit hasn't been working. And so to have Kyle and Pascal out there, or to have Danny Green and Kawhi out there with the 3 bench guys, it seemed to work really well for the Raptors. So I'm going to be interested to see if that continues, because you're still playing 9 guys. You're still playing the same amount of guys, right? It's just a matter of how you alter the minutes. The other thing to me that was super important about how Nick Nurse managed his rotation was now you're also spreading out Kyle and Kawhi's minutes. And what that does, it makes me think a lot about what happened last year, right? If you go back to last season when the Houston Rockets made the trade for Chris Paul, and everyone was worried about how's this going to work? How is Chris Paul and James Harden going to play together? They both need the ball in their hands at all times, right? And what did Mike D'Antoni do? He did a really good job of having a lot of Chris Paul's minutes come with the second unit, or with James Harden on the bench. And what that does is you're always having a primary ball handler on the floor, but also it gives Chris Paul a chance to be that ball dominant guy, to be that lead guy for an extended period of time. And I feel like in this game, you kind of saw the same thing with Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard, because the issue that we've been seeing for the majority of the year is the fact that Kyle and Kawhi, like together for whatever reason, and it's not about a blame game or it's not a fault, it's just trying to work out chemistry, right? But they haven't been playing well together at the same time on the floor. So when you see that now the minutes are split between the bench and the starters, but you're having 2 starters at least still remain on the court with the bench, here's Kyle Lowry featured with the bench while Kawhi's getting the rest, but now Kyle Lowry gets to be Kyle Lowry, right? He gets to maintain that confidence of driving hard to the basket, trying to get fouled, or taking that 3-point shot in rhythm, right? And because you can't blame Kyle Lowry for this, because Kawhi Leonard's a really good player. But a lot of the time what's happened during the season is that Kyle Lowry, when he's on with Kawhi, he's sort of deferring to Kawhi a lot. And he's a lot more likely to just pass the ball to Kawhi, and then kind of just the rest of the team just stands there, which is not good offense for anybody, right? But you saw just a little bit different rotation and how much that worked, because you allowed Kyle Lowry to still be him by getting him a chunk of minutes without Kawhi on the floor. And then by the end of the game, you saw them run some solid offense at the end of the game. Got to give them credit for that. Solid offense at the end of the game. And I want to highlight one play in particular. Kawhi had the ball at the free throw line, which is one adjustment that was completely different, because if you go back to the last play that they ran in Houston, he had Kawhi at the top of the key, almost at half court, and then the Raptors trying to run the screen and roll, but you're so far out from the 3-point line, you're kind of messing up the play. There's not much else that can happen. And if you notice the adjustment tonight, Kawhi gets the ball basically at the free throw line. And now that's just bully ball from the foul line down. Kawhi got the ball. Wesley Matthews was guarding him super tight. But Kawhi, and this is something coaches will teach you, right? He stretches his arm out and extends the dribble beyond Wesley Matthews to get him kind of a head start. And then it was just one dribble to the basket. Tough lane for Kawhi. Should have been an and one. But as we know, the refs don't call the and ones on Kawhi yet for whatever reason. But that pretty much iced the game, that play. Again, a great job by the Raptors down the stretch. And even Kyle Lowry hit a big three down the stretch as well. It was a monster game for the Raptors, a great game. Again, when you can see, these are the stat lines the Raptors need to see from their two All-Stars. 33 and 10 from Kawhi, 19, 9, and 5 from Kyle Lowry. That's a production the Raptors need, right? Let's go to the flip side for a second and show some love to Luka Doncic. Wow. I got to admit I was wrong. To start the season and at the draft, I was from the camp that, hey, I don't know. I can't evaluate EuroLeague basketball. Like, we can watch highlights, cool, but I don't know how that translates into the NBA. So a 19-year-old putting in work in the EuroLeague, I don't know what that means. So my stance was, I need to see what happens. I need to see what he does in the league before I'm bowing down like so many people were heading into this season. Hey, I can admit I was wrong. That kid gets busy. Like, Luka put in work, and it didn't matter who was guarding him for the Raptors. He was getting busy. Norm almost fouled out. Danny Green had, I think, like 5 fouls. He was blown by Kawhi at certain points too. I mean, it didn't really get to the point where the Raps had to, put fourth quarter Kawhi on him on defense to like put the clamps on him. It didn't get to that point really, but 35, 10, and 12. That's work. And he's got it all, man. He's got a nice jumper, the way that he drives to the basket. He's got the floater game on lock. You saw how many times he used a pick and roll and was throwing the alley-oop, very Chris Paul-like. But you're saying he's doing the Chris Paul-like throwing those alley-oops. But this guy's like, what, 6'8", 6'9"? Kid's legit. I mean, it's great for Dallas because I want Mark Cuban's team to be successful. So I'm kind of I'm happy that Mark Cuban finally, of all these years after not really getting a high enough draft pick to get to fully rebuild, and they're not going to tank because Rick Carlisle's too good of a coach to tank, but to get that next franchise guy after Dirk, I'm happy for the Mavs to see that because Luka's legit. He is legit. And you think about all these free agents that are around, you start wondering, is someone going to want to sign with Luka in Dallas, right? Like, Mark Cuban seems to be an owner that you would want to play with if you're a star player, unless there's something I'm missing. Someone in the chat says, what were the Hawks thinking? Yeah, the Hawks traded for Trae Young, obviously, right? They took Trae Young instead of Luka. And I mean, if you think about it, the Kings also took Marvin Bagley, and then there's the Suns. Like, you think of all those teams could have used Luka Doncic, right? So it's interesting. It's crazy, but that's how the draft works. Different scouting departments are going to come back with different reports. The Mavs knew the guy that they wanted. They traded up to get him. Made it happen, right? It was weird as well, I'll say this, to see Dirk Nowitzki come off the bench. It's just weird to see Dirk like this. But at the end of the day, shouts to Dirk, one of the best big guys to ever play. And, maybe it's fitting that Dirk didn't leave or he didn't retire until they got the next guy. That's kind of cool. But let's get to the chat here, see what people are saying. Let me start with Twitter, see if there's any comments here on the Twitter page. And people are saying Nick Nurse put Kawhi in better position at the end of the game. Exactly, right? That's what I was talking about. If you notice at the end of last game, it was a Kawhi screen and roll, but it was near half court or near the top of the key. And it's almost really far out. As opposed to letting him cook from that foul line, letting him beast mode from that foul line. Real basketball heads, think back and remember year 2 LeBron in Miami, right? Where they started playing LeBron at the 4, and LeBron got deezed over that summer, came back, and it was foul line extended, LeBron top of the key just getting busy, and you couldn't stop him. Remember, shooting percentages were way up because basically it was all paint points. That's almost the offense they ran with Kawhi Leonard at the end of the game. And, Wesley Matthews is a great defender, but Kawhi Leonard's just going to bully him at the end of the day. And that's what we saw. Another comment here. Kyle played well, but I want to see him play well against big teams with Kawhi. It's a great point. It's a great point. We'll get to see that on Thursday because the Raptors' next game is against the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that qualifies as a big game. So that'll be a good opportunity to see what Kyle Lowry shows up to that game, right? That'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a lot of fun. Another comment. If we have this Kyle in the playoffs, we have a great chance on making the finals. Exactly true. We've been saying this, guys, from the start of the season. If Kyle Lowry is healthy and playing like the Kyle Lowry that we saw at the start of the year, the Kyle Lowry we saw tonight, Kyle Lowry is aggressive, the Raptors are making the NBA Finals. It's that simple. You need Kyle Lowry to get you 20 a night, somewhere near 20 a night. You need the ability for Kyle Lowry to get you 25 on any given night. That's what you need. He is your second all-star. And yes, his assist numbers are always there. I'm pretty sure he's still second in the league in assists. Yes, he still does the other little Kyle Lowry veteran point guard things, the solid defense, the taking charges, the getting Siakam the ball and getting Serge the ball in places that they can succeed. But overall, you need Kyle Lowry to score as well. And he did that tonight. If he's shooting that three with confidence, that's what you need to see. Someone says, have any thoughts on playing the Bucks next? It's a big game. The Raptors have played the Bucks tough. They've played them how many times this year? 3 times? One of the times was without Kawhi. I want to say the second time the Raptors blew the game late against the Bucks at home. I'm pretty sure that was the case, if my memory serves, where the Raptors, I want to say, were up 3. They're up 3 with like a minute left, and Kyle missed a 3-pointer late. The Bucks came down. I think Brogdon hit a 3, and then they hit another 3, and it just, didn't go well. But then you go back to the last time the Raptors played the Bucks, and that was a good win for them. So it's been an up and down season. That was a game where Giannis, the Raptors just played a really dope night, but that was the game where Kawhi Leonard and Pascal Siakam both scored 30 points. Giannis put up 43, but it didn't matter because the Raptors got that secondary scoring behind Kawhi Leonard. And if you're getting that, hey, the Raptors in that game too, if I remember correctly, that game was on the road. Raptors in Milwaukee, and the Raptors passing in that game, because if we remember, that was a game that was after the Raptors lost in San Antonio. They had that kind of no-show in San Antonio, and I want to say the bench had a little bench mob meeting where they didn't play well in San Antonio at all. If you remember that game, right, it was only Kawhi that showed up in San Antonio. Everyone else played pretty poorly. But then the next game was in Milwaukee, and the passing was just so crisp. The defense was crisp. The Raptors came out, and they handled their business against Milwaukee. So we'll see what the mindset is come Thursday. Thursday night at home against the Bucks on TNT, right? By then, we'll know if Kyle Lowry is a reserve, which we assume he will be. And one thing I want to bring up here, because the real diehard Raptors fans will know this and they'll remember this. But last year, what always happens is Kyle Lowry he'll have some really good games just before they announce the All-Star reserves. I always remember this. I definitely remember this from last season too. And yes, he's going to be named an All-Star, but it's like his way of making sure he gets named an All-Star. He makes sure to have really good games right before that happens. So anyways, Thursday night at home to the Bucks, that will be a big time matchup. Tune into that for sure. Someone here on Twitter says, great analysis. The Raptors are fun to watch. Greetings from Germany. Wow, shout out to Germany. Let's go to Instagram, see what's going on here. Lots of comments on Instagram. I'll scroll up to the beginning and try to get caught up here because shout out to the Instagram people. Always here. Always see the regulars here. Wow, there are a lot of comments here. MVP chants for Kawhi in Dallas. Raps fans are everywhere. It's really true. The Raptors fan base travels so well. And the one thing I'll say is that makes it even more annoying that at home, the crowd seems so quiet. It's weird to me. I was watching that Boston Golden State Warriors game Saturday night, and that Boston Celtics crowd is so lit. And I remember the days when the Raptors had that fan base. All I'm saying is come playoff time, people need to get serious. All that like sitting down during playoff games, no, 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 no. You need to use your home court advantage as a weapon. The same weapon that it was when you made the run against the Cavs in the conference finals. And he had LeBron James like mesmerized by how great and supportive that crowd was. Or if you go back to the Brooklyn Nets series and Kevin Garnett said he's never heard a crowd like that. And he's been in a lot of playoff battles, a lot of tough situations. And he said he's never heard a crowd that loud as was game 7 when the Raptors lost to the Nets that year. All I'm saying is, Raptors fans, please show up and make some noise. Make it a real home court advantage. Let's see, more comments. Someone says, finally they got some practice. They looked a lot smoother. Funny how that works, right? Despite what AI says, practices does come in handy sometimes. More shouts to Kyle Lowry. Someone says, nice to see Lowry play well. Another comment, Raps play better with KL, end of story. Very true. Someone else says, Kyle was never the most talented, but we can hopefully and always count on his heart and hustle. It's true. It's intangibles, right? It's a part of the game where every sport, you see statistics get boosted so much. Everyone talks about stats and try to use stats to tell you what happened in every game, but there's still going to always be a need for the eye test. And Kyle Lowry might be one of the best examples of that in the sense that, there's so many things that he does that doesn't show up in a box score. I mentioned that possession on Luka when he's guarding Luka Doncic. That's a great job there. That doesn't show up in the box score. All the points that Pascal Siakam and Serge Ibaka get are Kyle Lowry passing it to them, setting them up in the shooting pocket perfectly. You know what I mean? That's all Kyle Lowry. It just shows up as an assist, but the impact that he has on those two guys' games, Siakam and Serge Ibaka, you can't just measure that with an assist in the stat sheet. That's all I'm saying. Another comment here says, I've been saying this. Ball movement generates made shots. Yeah. It's that Golden State play, right? You see the ball movement when the ball's on a string. It's tough for the defense to keep up. Plus, everyone feels involved. Everyone's taking their turn. There's no one that's just stopping the ball because they haven't shot in a while because they know that, hey, if I pass it up when I have a good shot to get someone else a great shot, the same thing is going to happen next time around for me. Ball movement, very key. Someone says, I'm pretty worried by how the Raptors are performing. A big trade is definitely needed. I agree. If you do, in fact, have championship aspirations, you do, in fact, have NBA Finals aspirations in what could be most likely Kawhi Leonard's 1 year here in Toronto, you're probably going to have to make a move to solidify your Eastern Conference Finals or NBA Finals hopes. Because Boston is a problem. Okay? Boston is a problem. Like, they've struggled during the regular season, and the way that Kyrie Irving is playing lately, it's incredible. Also got to give credit to Brad Stevens for figuring out how to flip their lineup over and to start Marcus Smart and Marcus Morris. And what that's done is it's set roles, right? You've replaced those two guys in the starting lineup with Jaylen, instead of having Jaylen Brown and Gordon Hayward there, two offensive players that need the ball. Instead, you put in these other guys who are defensive grinders, right? They don't need the ball. But they can get busy at the same time, but they don't need the ball. It just kind of balanced out their lineup, and now you see them playing well. And Kyrie is playing incredible. They lost to the Warriors, but Yeah, I think everybody's going to lose to the Warriors. Let's see. More comments. Pascal played a bit more controlled too. He did. He did. We saw a lot less of the Pascal ISO ball. But again, I want you guys to pay attention to that. Look at how many times when Pascal is scoring, it's because he's on the offensive glass, because he's running the floor. Lowry's getting him a layup. It's because he's cutting to the basket. Whenever you see things break down and and Pascal gets the ball and it's just him one-on-one with someone in the post, that seems to be, to me anyways, where he misses the majority of his shots. That part of his game is still developing and it's not there yet, but it's almost like you got to pick and choose your spots. And he did a much better job of that tonight for sure. Let's see, more comments. The Raptors are better than the sum of the parts when they're passing. When they go one-on-one, we lose with teams that have more talent. That's true. Agreed with that totally. I know the points weren't really there, but I dig the Norm Powell turnaround. Norm Powell's had an interesting season because I thought he's been playing really well, but at the same time, the last few games, he's kind of been a little bit out of control. You know, he's kind of got to gear it down and find that middle ground. But overall, Norm's giving you good minutes. And the thing that I like about Norm, and again, the thing I like about DeLon, and I like the fact that DeLon got more minutes in this game, and he got the minutes ahead of CJ Miles. The thing about those two guys is, even if their shot's not falling, they'll still contribute in other ways. They're still going to defend. They're still going to try to get in passing lanes. They're still going to try to, they bring energy to the game, right? They change the pace of play, whether it's on offense or defense. They're just energetic. They're energy guys. And so they're able to contribute in multiple ways. So Norm has done a really good job in that, but his success has come from being under control. So as long as he's under control, that's really what the Raptors need from Norm. And it's just one of those things where he's doing a good job. He's just got to continue to try to make it happen. Let me go to Twitter here. Someone says Van Fleet is getting better at knowing his limits, but I'm still seeing too many forced shots. Yeah, for me, Freddie's forced shots, they kind of come when the offense breaks down. The offense stalls and he's left in a one-on-one kind of set, and then he has to force. I think that's when he gets himself in trouble. But overall, Freddie, I think, has had a solid year, and it's better for him now that everyone's back and healthy that he can settle down a bit and settle in with the second unit, right, and try to make that work. Here's a good point from Instagram. Someone says, zone defense helped a lot with the Mavs missing shots. Totally agree. Nick Nurse, I talked about it in the last podcast, and I said that I thought Nick Nurse didn't really have a good game last game. The rotation was kind of off, and, a couple of the late play calls didn't really go his way, obviously. This game, completely different. I think Nick Nurse did a really good job in this game. And as mentioned, how he reacted to the third quarter. Because we haven't even really gone over this. But at the half, the Toronto Raptors, they had 70 points at the half. The Raptors were up 70-58 at the half, right? I mentioned DeLon Wright had a great game. Raptors were on fire from three. 11 of 20 from three. They're 19 of 22 from the line. Only had 2 turnovers. It was outstanding. But then the third quarter started, and I don't know if they relaxed because they just thought the game was over, but the Raptors had a horrible, horrible third quarter. They started off 0 for 10 from the floor in the third quarter, and basically it was 5 minutes left in the third at one point, and the Raptors scored 4 points. 4 points. They were 1 of 13 in the third before Freddie hit a 3 off some great ball movement. They ended up finishing the third quarter 4 of 19 from the floor and had 5 turnovers. The Mavs actually ended up taking the lead after outscoring the Raptors 30-15 in that third Q. Mavs were up 3. But now the fourth quarter. And this is where I feel like the relax comes in if you've been watching this Raptors team the whole year. Because you know that it's a 3-point game. You know that the Raptors are more talented than the Mavs. But you also know that this team can get stops when they need to get stops. And so, most likely, as long as it's still close, you trust that they can win. And I mentioned getting stops. Nick Nurse, I bring this all up to get back to the comment here from Instagram, but Nick Nurse's adjustment when the middle of this run, Luka was going crazy. And Luka went out. Nick Nurse brought Kawhi back in, but the Raptors went to a zone. And it's always funny what happens when you throw a zone out there. I'm not really a fan of zone in professional basketball. I'm not even really that much of a fan of zone in like any level of basketball. I get it. I understand it. But the thing that happens, I think, in the NBA a lot because you're not used to seeing it is that it throws teams off. It changes the pace and the tempo of what a team is doing offensively, and it tricks you into believing that you're open from three. And then guys end up taking ill-advised threes, and that's what the Mavs did when the Raps were trying to get back in this game and get back into the game and make it a tie game, and in fact ended up taking the lead, right? The zone ended up working with 5 minutes left, and, it just threw things off. But also the underlying reason why I think the zone worked for the Raptors as well was it gave their starters a bit of a chance to kind of rest while being on the floor as well. And that's the issue, or that's the part where I think the zone works at like lower tiered levels of basketball, right? Like when you have guys that have to play the full game in high school or in college, zone kind of gives you a chance to rest a little bit on defense instead of having to chase Luka around ball screens or guard someone full court. And because of the heavy minutes that the starters were getting in this game, right? Because remember, they didn't use the full bench unit as a unit in this game. So with your starters playing such heavy minutes, I look at it here. Siakam, 37 minutes. Kawhi, 35. Ibaka, 36. Lowry, 37. Danny Green, 31. With all those guys playing heavy minutes, the zone also gave them a chance to all be on the floor in the fourth quarter while also getting a chance to rest. Make sense? But a great adjustment by Nick Nurse, and it worked. Great game by Nick Nurse tonight. Nick Nurse, I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about a dude that stepped in, changed the way that the lineups are played, moved Serge, changed Serge's position, dealt with 2 new starters, dealt with a bunch of injuries, and he looks up and his team is 37-15. I know he's not going to get Coach of the Year looks because a lot of people are going to say, well, basically they had the same team and they got Kawhi. But if you're really paying attention, Nick Nurse has dealt with a lot of different stuff this year and has done a really good job. Let's see. Someone says that's what Kawhi said in the post game. Yeah, Kawhi said the zone helped a lot. It just shakes things up a little, gives teams a different look, gives them something to think about. Another comment. Our team is getting healthy, which is a problem for the rest of the East. Can't wait for JB's return. Yeah, a healthy Toronto Raptors team obviously is a much better Toronto Raptors team. Someone named James says, "What's up, Sheldon? What's up? What's up, James?" Say what's up back. Someone says, "Can we get Dirk on our roster for threes off the bench?" I don't think Dirk is going to leave the Mavs, but that'd be pretty funny. I don't know how much Dirk really has left in the tank, how many minutes Dirk can really give you, because he can't really move defensively, right? Yeah, someone else agrees here on the chat, says Nurse staggered Kawhi and Kyle's minutes perfectly. Someone else says, I agree with the staggering of the bench players with the starters. Again, people who are regulars to this podcast knows it's something that we've been talking about for weeks, right? You don't have the same bench mob that you've had last year or even the year before, mostly because you moved Siakam to the starting lineup, but at the same time, it's just not the same unit. You're not getting the same results. And so you have to kind of go back and figure out a way to, find which combinations work while staggering your starters' minutes. And if you notice, they'll have a lineup where it's Kawhi and Danny Green in the bench. There's another lineup where it's Kyle Lowry and Siakam or Kyle Lowry and Serge with the bench, right? And you're noticing that in this game, and it worked really, really well because they keep bringing up the bench minutes, a bench being plus whatever, right? And yeah, that's cool, and it's a great stat, but here's where the plus minus is kind of a weird stat, a weird statistic, right? Because if I'm a bench guy, if I'm Fred VanVleet, and I'm on the floor, I'm getting credit for this run, but really, Kawhi's just getting busy, right? Do you know what I mean? Kawhi's still there to get busy, so that kind of inflates the plus minus numbers. Now, bench points, Again, that also kind of gets inflated because now if you're Fred VanVleet and Freddie hit 3 of 4 from 3 point land, right? The reason why I'm saying it gets inflated is because that changes drastically if he's on the court with Kawhi as opposed to if he's on the court with just OG, because there's so much more attention being placed to Kawhi Leonard on the floor. Opens things up for Fred, opens things up for DeLon. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that well? Anyways, great job by Nick Nurse. CJ Miles did not play. Someone says new Nurse was pissed at CJ after the Houston game. CJ didn't give them much. The CJ Miles experiment, like, again, I don't want to spend so much time talking about these guys at the end of the bench because I don't really think it matters at the end of the day. But the DeLon Wright thing, I think DeLon Wright actually comes into the game and he gives you energy. Yes, he might make the odd mistake and turn the ball over, but one thing you'll always take from your bench guys is coming in and giving energy. And I think DeLon Wright does that, and he does way more things than CJ Miles. So while I didn't really understand the CJ Miles being played over DeLon last game, it was good to see DeLon back in the lineup. DeLon had 9 points, I want to say, in the first half, and he was active, right? He was all over the place. He had a huge block after turning the ball over, but it was just good. Let's see what else is going on here. People talking about getting Dirk, which I think, yeah, no. Dirk's never leaving Dallas. I agree with someone else in the chat here. More shouts to Kyle Lowry. Shout out to Luka. Shoots over Kawhi. Kawhi and hits the end of the game 3 just cuz. Also saying, thank goodness DeAndre Jordan is washed. Oh, man. Another comment here says, DeLon playing better than Fred VanVleet. Do you know what? I don't necessarily, I don't really think DeLon or Freddie's played that much better than DeLon this season. I think they both had up and down runs. But again, I like just what they bring to the table together. But we'll see. At the end of the video, thank you guys for sending in all these comments because really appreciate it. More comments here. Kyle was more of a threat tonight, so it took the pressure off Kawhi, especially in the fourth quarter. Someone says, is it me or do we really need help rebounding? And what's with giving up so many points in the paint? Well, it's a good question because it's a trade-off that you made by moving Serge to the 5. You're going smaller, right? And especially JV, your rebounding numbers are going to be down. You can't really play the matchups as much as you did early in the year when you have JV and Serge. And now you can pick and choose which big guy is better suited to play the 5 depending on the matchups. Now you just have Serge and Siakam out there. And, you know, Serge has been doing a really, really good job, man. For struggling at the 5, Serge is rebounding like crazy as of late. He had another double-double with 11 and 11. I got to find the stat because I wrote it down earlier. Serge Ibaka has been doing really well as of late. I can't find the stat right now, but I want to say he's like 18 and 9 over his last 5 games heading into this one. Serge has just been playing really, really well. And the key for him, I think, is with JV out, Serge has done such a good job of rebounding because you need him to do that. Yeah, here it is. Serge averaging 18 and 9 while shooting over 50% in his last 5 games heading into this one, right? And without JV, you need him to be that like rebounder on the glass. We're seeing OKC Serge right now. It's crazy to think. I didn't think this was possible, but we're seeing OKC Serge, and it's going to be important to get JV back because you need to start giving Serge some rest because you want to make sure that he still has something left in the tank for a deep playoff run because you're going to need Serge on the glass playing like OKC if you're going to make a deep playoff run. But yeah, huge shouts to Serge Ibaka. Serge has been playing great. Definitely been playing great. So many good comments tonight. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And hopefully, I know I didn't play as great as Serge Ibaka on this podcast, but I hope I did okay for you guys on this Friday night. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate all the comments. Apologies I couldn't get to all of them, but shouts to you guys as well. And I love how you guys just start having your own conversation in the chat group. That's really cool too because, again, this is the whole purpose of building this podcast. Just want to build a platform for Raptors fans to discuss what's going on with their team, the best team in Raptors franchise history, right? We've seen Kawhi Leonard prove again that he is the best player in Raptors franchise history as well. I know it might only go down as being 1 year for Kawhi, right? But at the end of the day, you're seeing it night in, night out. He played that I think clinched his 22nd straight game with at least 20 points, but he grabbed a rebound, came down on a fast break, got a tough and one, and it's just crazy. Right now he's at 22 games, 1 game behind Vince Carter for the franchise record for consecutive games with at least 20 points. But Kawhi, I mean, it's crazy because that game to tie it is going to be against the Bucks. And I'm going to go out and assume that Kawhi is going to get 20 points against the Bucks because he tends to show up in those big boy games, right? The other thing with Kawhi, too, is he also set the Raptors record for points in a month. He topped that list, and I think it was 31.6 points per game. Kawhi Leonard has a record now for the Toronto Raptors franchise, most points per game average in a month. What this guy's done, it's incredible. And so, again, my message to Raptors, and enjoy this ride. Who knows what's going to happen after this year? Who knows where he's going to play? Who knows where he's going to live, right? Like, the rumors are just going to get so much more ridiculous from here on out. So it's best to just enjoy the ride, enjoy the run, and enjoy watching one of the best players in the league wear a Toronto Raptors uniform. Again, Kawhi Leonard did it for the Toronto Raptors tonight, 33-10 for Kawhi Leonard, 19-9-5 for Kyle Lowry, and Luka Doncic in a losing effort, but still came up with 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists for Luka Doncic. Just a monster game. Raptors win 123-120 to improve to 37-15, 16-11 on the road, and 15-6 against the Western Conference. This Raptors team is good, folks. This Raptors team is very good. And it's a different vibe. They mentioned that last year's record at this point was, I want to say 36-16, I think they said. But anyways, like right around the same thing. But watching this team, don't you believe it a little more than Raptors teams of the past? That you didn't really buy into the regular season success? I don't know. It's interesting. But anyways, the big message, enjoy the ride. And again, thank you for joining me. My name is Sheldon Alexander. Shouts to the people again on Twitter, where you can find this podcast live after each and every episode. After each and every Toronto Raptors game. You can find me on Twitter and this Wrap It Up podcast live at Shell Alexander. Up within minutes following each and every Raptor game. Click there, have the conversation, join in the conversation with us there. Or you can do the same on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. But if you're unable to do that, you're more of a podcast person, you need it for your commute, you need it for your treadmill work, whatever it is, tune in. As always, the Wrap It Up podcast you can find on the On Blast Podcast Network, which is on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and of course on YouTube. Huge salute to the YouTube community, the YouTube crew, the people watching the YouTube videos at work, watching it late nights while you're studying or whatever. You got it on in the background. Shouts to all you guys for supporting the podcast and supporting the movement of the Wrap It Up /On Blast community. And again, don't forget to tune in to our Ball on Blast podcast, which I do each and every week with our guy Andrew Webster. That's a basketball NBA wide conversation mixed in with a little pop culture stuff at the end. This week's episode that's up right now, we talked about the All-Star starters, gave our predictions for the rest of reserve rosters. We talked about James Harden's crazy run, Boogie being back, Russell Westbrook being Russell Westbrook, and we actually talked about the Fire Festival doc on Netflix as well. Lots of fun on that podcast. Again, that one's a Ball on Blast podcast, which you get on the same feed that you find this podcast. So anywhere you see that, like and subscribe, tell your friends. Greatly appreciate it. Again, my name is Sheldon Alexander, and I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is Wrap It Up on Blast, Raps post-game show, as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time. Big boy game on Thursday, folks. Wrap It Up podcast. Till then, See ya.
On blast.